Well, hello, everybody. How are you doing? This is Andy Smith, 34-year veteran of the comic book industry. And I'm going to try to do some more, or start doing some pre recorded drawing video tutorials. Keep them kind of short, not too long. And I thought I would start off with, as you saw the title of the stream, let me add this to the stage, get myself nice and small. Actually, you know what? Uh, Do I even need to be seen? Not really. Nobody needs to see my weird though. So I will put my face back there. Okay, I'm going to start off with this Conan drawing by Barry Windsor-Smith. And the whole reason of this tutorial is copying is a great learning tool. And this even applies to professionals. At least I think so. I think copying a drawing by somebody else is a great way to learn. Now, if you're just starting out, there's a couple ways you can do it. Imagine this is a blank piece of paper and you take tracing paper, or if you're working digitally, you can, of course, just create a new layer. So this is the drawing of Conan Barry did. I like it. It has quirky anatomy. I don't care. I like the rendering style, the way he, shows the line work to show the forms and stuff. So one way to copy is literally, I'm lowering the opacity. Like I said, you would just trace it. Oops, God, I always do that. Wrong layer. Okay. Got to get the pencil up a little more. There we go. You would just trace it the way you see it. Now, while you're doing this, you should, let me blow up a little more too. While you're doing this, you want to think about the forms, the big shapes, and why Barry is drawing the way he is. And think about, why is that wrapping around this belt? Because remember, everything is three-dimensional. So why is this wrapping around? Well, it's wrapping around because this part of his body, his torso, is tilted forward. Now, like I said, there's nothing wrong with copying straight out like this, just tracing it off and trying to think about it. However, I think a better way, and then, you turn the layer off and you can kind of see what you're doing. I think a better way, however, if you're going to copy, I always say you want to break down the human figure to its simplest forms. Simplest forms are, draw them over here. This is not a circle. This is a sphere. You want to think three-dimensionally, so this gets wrapped around. Another form that makes up a figure is a cylinder. 3 dimensions, it wraps around, so it has curves to it and such. So you can see the form. And then, of course, there's the other form that can make up a figure or anything, and that's a cube. So it's not a square. This is not a square. This is just a cube drawn straight on. So you can't see the sides, top, or anything else. But then you turn it and you can see dimensions to it. So with that in mind, if you're going to trace off this figure, and a great book to get, by the way, Drawing Dynamic Comics by me, Andy Smith, shows kind of a basic mannequin. And a mannequin is the simple shapes that make up a figure. So I always start with the torso. You're not worrying about anatomy or anything. You're just trying to put in the basic shape that he has, or what you think it is, to make up the anatomy. So for me, I do a shape kind of like this. It's a rectangle. This is what we call the neck hole. It's where the neck comes out of, and then the center line comes down. And this is where I say, obviously, you can kind of see where Barry's drawing is a little off, because I just boxed in his torso rib cage area. Here's the chest line. That's where the chest should fall, the bottom of the pecs or the nipples, however you want to do it. And then the arm, the shoulder is a sphere. The upper arm is a cylinder, and it's going back away from us. So it's a cylinder. His forearm is coming towards us, and one of the reasons we can tell is because how he drew the armbands and wristbands are curving, so the shape is coming towards us, and that is another sphere, like that. And then back here, the elbow, another cylinder. This is a cylinder. And then the elbow joint is a ball or another sphere. So then this shoulder here, sphere. His upper arm is a cylinder going way back in perspective like that. So it's really foreshortened back in perspective. And then his forearm is coming towards us again. And we know that just because by looking at the drawing, his hand's coming at us. But then the way he wraps his accoutrements, if you will, his armband around the form. So that's how we can tell. So you look for things like that. When it comes to his waist, it's hard to see what Barry has going on because of the chainmail and all that stuff. But you can see his crotch is here. This leg is coming forward. So if somebody's walking, running, stuff like that, if whatever shoulder you have coming forward, and on this drawing, it's Conan's left shoulder is coming forward this way, well, then the opposite leg should be coming forward. And if that's happening, that means if his shoulders are in this position, because it's coming forward, his hips have to be in the opposite position. So by doing that, you can kind of see, and this is the crotch, you can see it the shadow. Once again, it's another stylized type of box that makes up the waist, and it's tilted back as well, not as much, or I should say it's tilted forward as well, because he's bent over. You can tell that by the arch of his whole body right here, but it's not tilted forward as much as his shoulders are. And then you get the waist box drawn in, and then you can see the leg. Once again, the leg, what is it? It's a cylinder going back in perspective. And then you don't really have to worry about drawing in the hip joint, but if you did, it would be another sphere that sets up inside of this waist box. And then the knee is another sphere, and then the back leg is another cylinder going, again, way back in perspective like that. The leg coming forward, which you can tell because just looking at the drawing, but the way this leg band wraps around, it's another cylinder coming forward. The knee is a sphere, and because it's in front of this leg, the sphere should be bigger than the one back here to establish some depth. But it's not extreme perspective, so it's not a lot bigger than this one. And then the lower leg is another cylinder, and you can tell it's going down and back a little bit because of how he's wrapping these straps around the leg. Now, Barry apparently thought Conan had no calf muscle whatsoever. So he has a very thin lower leg. So he needs to get back in the gym. Anyhow, cylinder going down. The ankle is another sphere. And then the foot is a shape that is kind of a wedge that comes down from the front of the sphere that makes the lower leg, or cylinder, sorry, to the toes. It's a wedge that goes back to the heel, and then on this back foot you only see the top of the wedge. The hand is another big shape that makes up the palm where the fingers come out of, and it's basically a type of block shape. Even when it's holding something, it's still a block shape. And then all the fingers are little cylinders, spheres that connect to little cylinder, or cylinders that connect to little spheres for each of the joints in the fingers. And then the head starts off as not a circle, but a sphere. And then the jawline drops down off of it and connects on the side of the head at about the halfway point. Now remember, the front of the head is curved as it goes around, like the ball or sphere is, but then the side of the head flattens out. Not totally flat, but it's not as curved as the front of the head. And then you divide that flat area in half vertically, and that's where the jawline comes down. And then the neck, you got it. It is a cylinder. So then once you're done and you do all that, you can turn this layer off here, and you can see the structure of a figure. Now, this is really important. And guys, I tell you, if you want to draw superheroes or just regular people, you got to get these basic shapes down. And these boxes and stuff, they apply to any figure. Doesn't matter the age, the height. That's the kneecap. Doesn't matter the age or the height of the person. This all applies. It's just you adjust for the height of the person, the size of like the torso box and the waist box and the legs, so on and so forth. And that leg's going back. This leg's coming forward, like I said. So, but you can see just from this, and I've always said this, if you can master these shapes, basically, this is how Kirby got so fast at drawing. Jack Kirby, his very early drawings in comics were more realistic. You could see anatomy and stuff. But then he just got to a point where he was drawing so fast, he simplified it down to stuff like this. And the thing I like about these not live streams, but these videos, I never know where I'm going. So I'm going to put another layer over this, just kind of show you quickly, not the whole figure, but just one part of it, what I mean with Jack. So I'm actually going to switch over to a different tool here. It's kind of a pen. Let me get to the right size. So Jack Kirby drawing, you're going, oh, what do you mean? And it's like, well, Jack would just deal with I always do that once again. Go to the proper layer. Jack would just deal with stuff like the outlines and stuff. And then obviously he got overlap, since you can tell that this torso is overlapping the waist. Here, there's the crotch. This leg's going back. So Jack he's really just following these basic shapes when he's doing his figures. Oops, I don't like that. I don't want to make the brush a little smaller. There we go. And I mean, Jack's knees were just these big, blocky shapes for the knees. And I'm not going to do the whole figure, but he'd go, oh, that's the shoulder based on what? A sphere, a ball. This arm's going back. And then he would go, okay, this arm's coming forward now. So he would still have the proper overlap like that. And then on this side, same thing. And then basically, we've all seen Jack Kirby's work, and he's got kind of the squiggles and stuff. And basically, he's just doing like, and this isn't going to be totally exact because I'm not Jack Kirby, but he would just pop stuff in. Of course, he'd have shadows. This. He might go as far as the blacken that in. Now, don't get me wrong, he wouldn't do a center line that awful if he even did one. And in this back arm, Jack would just probably do a little rim light, throw the rest of it in shadow, and then just do once again, my interpretation. I have nothing of Jack Kirby's open to really try and reference. And I'm not trying to draw like Jack exactly. I'm just trying to show you that he knows anatomy, but he knows enough to where he got to a point where he could just stylize so much of it. And then, Jack would say, oh, this leg's going back. So he might just do something like this to throw that leg in shadow. And then this whole bottom leg, he just might totally knock in shadow like that. And something like that for the foot. Whereas this leg coming forward, once again, he knows the anatomy. So he might just do the slashy, dashy stuff that he made up like this. I've seen tons of knees where he just does a few lines underneath and on the top. And then this leg's going back, and he might blacken in the front of the knee. Like that. And then, you turn the layer off below it, and you kind of get a sense of a Jack Kirby figure with what he was doing. And that's without adding, like you saw, any anatomy. And I'll pull this to the side so you can see it next to each other. That's without adding any anatomy to these shapes. So get this down. I tell every student, get these shapes down. You get these down and you can draw anything. So the other thing I want to do is kind of just show like Barry stuff. So let me turn this off, turn that off, turn this back on, do a new layer. Obviously this isn't dated. I don't know what year this was drawn. Obviously in the 70s, probably around Conan 2021 when he started really inking like this. But what I was going to show is one of the exercises I also like to do is I like to take the outline that somebody did, and I'm going to, it's going to be Conan. So I'm keeping this outline that he did, and I'll probably just do it for the torso because I don't want the video to be super long. And what I'm going to do is, after I have the outline, I'm probably going to turn the layer off, the original Barry Smith layer off, and use his outline, but do the interior the way I draw. And it's kind of a fun experiment to see if you can keep the original outline. Now his arm is behind this tree, but I know it goes up like that and curves back down. I'm not going to get into the hands either with this little exercise. I just really want to do the torso quickly to show you what I want to be doing. So this is a band around his arm. Actually, before I do the band, I should get the whole outline done. I'm not going to erase the gauntlet lines. I will do this. Like I said, I'm not going to worry about the hands, but I want to have a stopping point. And, I will just stick with this. Won't be as detailed because this is just a learning exercise again. And this is the type of stuff I'll do now for fun, because I love the way people draw and break down figures, different artists and such. So this is just a fun exercise I'll do for myself. Pencil's a little too small there. Same thing, I'm keeping outline of the face that he did and the hair. So then what I'll do is I'll still keep this layer on so I can see it, but I'll drop it down just a little bit more in opacity so it's really faint. Kind of like that. So it's really hard to see, but now I'll start doing the interior stuff the way I draw. And this might get a little quote unquote sketchy because I still draw through a lot, but this is the center. Did it on the wrong layer, of course. So this is the center here. Clavicle goes up that way. Neck, the other side of his neck comes down. Pit of the neck. It's his pec. Shoulder. Coming down. And see, this is one of the areas that I think Barry messed up on, was the pecs being aligned properly. And do I think he did it on purpose? No. I think he was a young artist, and he got down on this rendering style, but drawing wise, he was still working stuff out. And with this arm going back, the shoulder kind of pops forward some. Of course, the deltoid is 3 heads, make up the shoulder muscle. Sternocleidomastoid, the big neck muscle. Adam's apple, because he's a dude, and dudes have Adam's apples. Like that. And then the serratus muscles, if I pronounce those right, come down here. Remember, I'm keeping his outline. So he's got the lat pulled back like that, but I'm keeping his outline, but I'm trying to make it work with my anatomy. So rib cage, if he was really defined. First set of ab muscles right under the rib cage there. Because he's twisting, the next set of ab muscles come down and twist a little more, and then this bottom set that goes underneath the belt go in the same direction as his hips do. So the top set, one thing to remember, at least when I draw, this top, the bottom of the pecs line up with the shoulders. So if the shoulders are going this way, the bottom of the pecs are going that way as well. And then when you do the cutout for the rib cage, the first line of abs also wrap around and parallel the shoulders. And then with the twist, the next line of abs twist a little bit, and then the third line of abs parallel whatever the hips are doing. And it gives you that nice twist. Anyhow, back to this. So now I got the abs in there. Let's get the arm done. The arm's going back, so the bicep overlaps, of course. You got that muscle on the forearm that connects partway up the upper arm, comes around, and then basically it's curving around to the thumb. Another little muscle does that, and then this top one basically goes to the top of the hand. And then what we're seeing here, throw a little shadow. What we're seeing here is the muscles on the bottom of the arm, and then going by his outline, the band on his forearm wraps around pretty much like he has it. That works fine. Might not be 100% accurate, but it's comics. It works fine. Tricep. This is his outline, tricep. And then over here, the bicep's going back. You'd see the bottom of the bicep here. But like you did, you can throw it in shadow because it's so far back. And if the light's coming from, like, say, this way, coming down, you can cast the shadow down onto the rest of his forearm. You've got the outer muscle here, this muscle right here. Just do a little erase, boom. This muscle right here comes here and it goes down because it basically connects like this. And then the other muscle right here wraps around and down to the thumb. And then the inside forearm muscles connect here. Once again, keeping his outline. Now I'm just going to do the face. It's very faint, but I can see it well enough. I'm going to make the pencil a little bit smaller for a little more detail. So if I was doing this, the face is kind of flat. The center line of his face, it's kind of like that. Erase most of it anyhow. But anyhow, the nose is fine. He's got a longer nose, long, thin nose. That's fine. His brow. Pop the eyes in. And I can barely see. As soon as I start drawing, the stuff underneath on the lower layer of berries almost disappears. I'm going to have him looking at us. What are you looking at? I'm Conan. I can't even see the mouth and whatever facial expression is going on there, so I'm just going to do whatever I want. Because like I said, I just cared about the outline. Now, because the chin is so close right here, going by the original outline to his mouth, there's no way his mouth is wide open yelling. but it could be open a smidge like that. Still not that strong of a chin, but I want to keep the outline. I could have gave him a stronger chin. Cheekbone cuts in. He's kind of smirking. That's his ear. So let's see what we have. Pull it aside. And I'll boost this one back up. And you can see I kept the outline of Barry's figure. And I'm not saying I corrected the anatomy. To me, it's correct compared to what Barry drew. And it looks better to me. But when I look at Barry's piece, I don't look at it and go, ugh, that's drawn so bad. I just see great Barry Windsor-Smith style. And that's what I think is cool. And actually, real quick, I'm going to pull this back. Oops, wrong one. Ugh, let me just do it the easy way. Oh, I thought that was the easy way. I'm going to pull my guy back here. I actually want to tackle the leg with the outline that Barry has for the leg. I think everything's yeah, it is. Okay, so let me lighten it up. And I'm just going to do the front leg. I'm not going to do the back leg. So this is the outline. And I'm not worried about the band that's around it either. This is the outline he has. This right here that pops out like that, that's a bony landmark. And I bet Barry knew that. If you feel the inside of your leg, that is the top of the humerus thigh bone. So anyhow, so there we go. I got it drawn that way. Let me up my brush a little bit. And keeping his outline, and I'll even keep the shadow he had. I don't really have to make it darker. The kneecap is here, which he pretty much indicated. That's the side of the humerus. And the kneecap sits more on the top of the humerus bone. And then this is, I don't know what's going on with the anatomy that Barry did. And like I said, I think I'm sometimes too much of a stickler for rules. And I like guys that are stylized. But it's also tough for me because I'm like, did he never open an anatomy book? Because if you did, you can see how the leg anatomy goes. This is the inner muscle teardrop shape, which I can't remember the name of. The outer muscle's a little bit higher, like that, coming from your oh my God, I'm blanking on the name of it, but it's your little side muscle that connects to your hip bone. You've got this, if you look at bodybuilders, it's this huge tubular type muscle that comes down from that, basically the outside of the body across the leg underneath, in this view, the teardrop muscle, and connects down here like that, but this muscle overlaps it. And then you've got, is it the quadricep? The main muscle in the middle of your leg that comes down and attaches like that. So, I mean, the outline that Barry did isn't all that bad. It's just the way he's rendering with this anatomy. Like, you can kind of see this stuff that Barry did here and here, which is fine because if you look at this inner thigh muscle right here, does have like separations in it. But some of the other stuff he did, I don't understand, and why he has such no calf is beyond me. Now let me pull that aside so you can see it. See what I did there? So you can see the difference, and I'll boost this back up. So there you go. Keeping that's a fun exercise that when I see somebody's drawing that I really like, I'll sometimes do the outline and then do my anatomy inside of it just to see if it works. It's a fun experiment. For artists that are just beginning, I would skip doing that. And if you find a drawing you like, put tracing paper over it and maybe break it down. Let me move this to the side so you can see it. Break it down into its basic shapes. And just, I tell people when I see their sketchbooks that want to draw figures and superheroes and their sketchbook is filled with more finished colored drawings, I say that's nice, but that's the icing on the cake. You got to bake the cake right first. Fill up a sketchbook with structure drawing stuff. So there you go, guys. Do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel to catch more content like this. And last but not least, in the comments, if there's any drawing tutorial you would like me to tackle in the future, let me know and I'll try to accommodate. I'm trying to do one of these a week. So until next time, I hope this was informative, and we'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye, everybody.